Welcome to the tutorial, part 21. Please subscribe to my channel to encourage me to upload more videos. Control systems continued. Reversing starter. In the previous part, we learned about star-delta starters and their working. In this part, we will learn about reversing starters that are used for special purposes. The reversing starter is a special type of push-button starter, in addition to the starting and stopping of motors, and the director of rotation of three-phase induction motors. The three-phase motors shall be run in two directions, and it can be done by interchanging the connection of any two phases of the power supply. This is possible to do through two separate contactors, one for forward and the other for reverse operation. If the two contactors get energized simultaneously, causes a short circuit in the circuit. To prevent both the contactors from getting energized simultaneously, a prevention method, called interlocking, is employed between the two contactors. The interlocking methods are explained in our previous parts of the control system, and thus I hope everyone knows about it. Interlocking is done by connecting a closed auxiliary contact of the forward contactor in series with the coil of the reverse contactor, and vice versa. There is a control circuit that uses two contactors for the operation of the forward and reverse functions. Normally, the motor is running in the clockwise direction, with the actual sequence of phases. In three-phase motors, the rotation of the motor depends upon the sequence of the phases. In normal sequence of R, Y, and B, the motor will run in the normal direction, that is clockwise. When any two of the phases swap each other, the rotation of the motor will be reversed. Two push buttons and two contactors are used in this starter unit. When the push button for forward is pressed, motor rotates in the forward direction, and the motor direction is reversed by pressing the reverse direction push button. We have to know about two types of circuits for the reversing starter. That is, the circuit for the power supply and the circuit for the control system. Two regular contactors are provided in the motor starter for the working of forward and reverse direction. The starter is operated with an electrical interlock that prevents both coils from pulling in simultaneously. Some contactors come with built-in mechanical interlocks in between the two contactors to prevent the same time operation, which is shown in the picture. Referring to the picture, the forward contactor energizes, the R phase is connected to terminal 1, the Y phase is connected to terminal 2, and the B phase is connected to terminal 3 respectively. When the reverse contactor is energized, the R phase and the B phase are interchanged with terminals 1 and 3, allowing for a phase shift in the three-phase circuit, while no changes in the Y phase. These changes cause the motor to rotate in the opposite direction. Refer to the picture. We can see two contactors are connected to a motor for forward and reverse operation. As there is only one motor for both contactor coils, a single OLR is enough to provide running protection in both directions. When designing the control schematic, for forward and reverse circuits, we start with the standard 3-wire, 3-phase circuit. Two push-button switches, with normally open contact, two contactors, with one normally open auxiliary contact for holding, and one normally closed auxiliary contact, for interlocking. A single normally closed stop button is sufficient to disable the motor in both directions. The two contactor coils are electrically interlocked through the normally closed contacts of each other, provided as electrical interlocking. The power from the forward push button reaches to contactor C1 through the NC contact of the contactor C2. Same as the power from the reverse push button reaches to contactor C2 through the NC contact of the contactor C1. Let us see the workings of the circuit in detail. There is no restriction on whether forward or reverse to start first. Any direction shall be applicable to start first. So, I selected the forward direction as the first to explain the working of the circuit. When the power is on and the forward push button is pressed, as long as the reverse coil is not engaged, the current will find a path through the normally closed auxiliary of the reverse contact and energize the forward contactor coil. The holding contact of the forward contactor is also closed, and the motor works in the forward direction continuously in the normal phase sequence. When the forward contactor is in the closed position, the normally closed contact of the forward contactor will be open, thus blocking the power to the reverse contactor. So, if the reverse push button is pressed while the forward coil is engaged, the current will not be able to go to the reverse contactor. This applies to other contactor as well, that is, when the reverse contactor is in the closed position, the normally closed contact of the reverse contactor will be open, thus blocking the power going to the forward contactor. The forward coil must be de-energized to work the motor in the reverse direction. To do this, the stop button must be pressed, then the motor stops, and the reverse push button can energize the reverse contactor coil. Regardless of which direction the motor is spinning, this motor will operate as a standard 3-wire, 3-phase circuit. And the motor is also equipped with overload protection, so that the motor will run until either the stop button is pressed or an overload occurs. Electrical interlocking is accomplished by installing the normally closed contact of one direction's coil in series with the opposite direction's coil, and vice versa. This ensures that, when the forward coil is energized, pushing the reverse push button will not energize the reverse coil. The same situation is in effect when the reverse coil is energized. In both situations, the stop button will need to be pressed to de-energize the running coil and return all its auxiliary contacts to their original state. This is the end of part 21. The next part is to be continued with a new control system. Thank you for supporting my channel. Subscribe to the channel to get new videos and updates.